Hello and welcome to the Retail Podcast. And today we're joined by Connie Kwok, Vice President of Quick Commerce at Glovo. Just before we start, for those who don't know what Q-commerce is, I assume it's the same as Quick Commerce?
A very, very good question to begin with. So first of all, let me explain what Glovo is. Listeners may not know. So Glovo, we're a Spanish tech company with the mission to build the largest marketplace in your city. And we are able to send customers products, whatever they want, within a minute. And we're a multi-category platform. So when it comes to Q-commerce, I think 80% of our business is food delivery from restaurants.
Got you.
Probably what we're most famous for. But actually the fastest growing part of our business is everything non-restaurants, which is what we call quick commerce in Glovo. So customers can come to buy their groceries from us, but also products from a range of retail partners.
I'm curious from an experience perspective, apart from speed delivery, which obviously is important if you're hoping to use a sort of online delivery platform or marketplace, what would you say are the three primary experiences and more experience factors that distinguish a quick commerce separate from same day or next day?
I think ultimately it's thinking about what convenience means to customers and how that's really evolved over time, because I spent a significant part of my career at Amazon, and when I joined nearly 10 years ago now, like speedy delivery was 2-day delivery. That's how I am. But now that I'm at Glovo, we're worrying about whether delivery times are 35 minutes versus 30 minutes. But But to be clear though, I think what we've learned at Glovo is that what convenience means to customers can be really different depending on what that shopping mission is and what category of product you're looking to buy. So if you're buying burger and chips, obviously speed of delivery is absolutely what convenience means.
Yeah.
Because people are hungry, they want their food to get cold. But in other categories, convenience may mean totally different thing. Like in grocery, for example, you could be halfway cooking a recipe and you've realized you've run out of soy sauce for your stir fry. You need it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But in another use case, you could be commuting to work. You know that you'll be home at 6 o'clock that evening. So therefore, if you want your grocery order to come, the most convenient thing for you is the delivery slot and the accuracy into that delivery slot. Because you don't want it to arrive before 6 because you're not home yet. But you also don't want to be very much after 6. So it really depends on what customers are really thinking about. And I think the evolution of quick commerce it's not just about being really, really fast. It's all about thinking about all of those different customer use cases and making sure that we're able to be the most convenient option for that customer today.
I think one of the things that on the show we've spoken about quick commerce in India and how, that is 15 minutes and it's like, how do you do 15 minutes in Europe or any of the other logistical nightmare countries? But they seem to, anyway, it just sort of takes the conversation in a different way. And I am curious because I did interview one of your competitors in the UK, and I asked this question: do you think, or from research, or just from a general perspective, is there any? You just described two use cases where maybe the answer is yes. But do you think we need to get to 15-minute delivery?
I think the India use case is a very interesting one to reference and understanding why it's 15 minutes in India, whereas I think in Europe, everyone's converging on 30 minutes, even 45 minutes is already pretty fast.
Yeah.
Because there's a number of supply side factors that help India to do that, right? Obviously, the labor cost there is very different, but also how densely populated, especially the major cities are, similar to China, where I spent a lot of my career. Right. So there's that supply side constraint that everyone needs to think about. But there's also the customer expectation. I think a lot of the use cases I've just talked about, yes, 30 minutes seems to be quick enough, but we're also thinking about things like, again, other use cases where 45 minutes, 60 minutes, or even 5 hours, again, is maybe the accuracy of exactly I want it at 7 p.m., not 7:30. That may be the most important things.
And out of curiosity, will Glovo get into like the week delivery, like the grocery you mentioned, like this, a once a week type thing? Is that, or sorry, are you already doing that for grocers?
So if right now, if you want to schedule a delivery for next week, it's
Yep.
absolutely possible. And what we're always doing is understanding customers' demand and customers' behavior to best understand how we can serve them. Is something that I've been at Glovo 6 months now, so I'm fascinated to see the data set that I have.
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed, like Glovo is in 23 different countries. So I've got 23 different countries of customer behavior to learn from, which is fascinating. But for some reason, the Italians are really keen to schedule their deliveries. They're the ones that have the highest amongst all of my countries.
Oh, well,
Still haven't understood clearly why that is, but I think this is the thing. We have so much data at our hands, and it's a combination of looking at that quant, but also talking to our customers more closely to see, does it make sense for us to widen that delivery window for them?
oh, that's really interesting. And I think with the spirit of you guys being a marketplace, you did mention Glovo operates in 23 countries across Europe, Central Asia, and Africa. So what, like, I mean, in Italy is an interesting one, but what approaches would you use to localize assortment, pricing, fulfillment in these different cities and giving them different regulations as well? Because there's courier regulations that have making your life so much more complicated. And just quickly after that, like once you've answered that, what would become an optimal merchant partnership under these? Because then I think, you're a marketplace dependent on these partnerships. What's an optimal partnership look like?
Yeah, so let's talk about the kind of how to localize for customers. You're absolutely right. What localizing for customers and tailoring that local demand means can mean very, very different things. So first of all, there's definitely the must-haves. You talked about local laws and regulations. We have one right now going on. For example, Bulgaria is currently transitioning to the EU. So our app interface has to be showing both euros and Bulgarian lev in this transition period. So something we've just done just for Bulgaria. But there's also other basic things like translation. At Glovo, across our 23 countries, we've got 18, I think, 18-ish different languages.
Yeah.
So making sure what looks great in Spanish also looks great in Georgian.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have a lot of expat populations in all of these countries. I mean, I moved to Barcelona 6 months ago. My Spanish is still terrible. So we also have to think about what languages make sense for us to do auto translations for our customers. So those are the more basic stuff that we have to get right. But beyond that, and you talked about, well, how do we tailor our selection and pricing? Beyond those basics, we also need to think about what those customer behaviors and expectations are. We have some very large global and regional players who partner with us across our whole footprint. Obviously, the McDonald's, KFCs of the world, but also in the retail space, Carrefour, Decathlon, they're global businesses. But we also need to make sure that we serve what customers care about are their local heroes. So, for example, in Spain, we know that everyone loves their bread in the mornings. They typically have their favorite local baker. So we definitely need to make sure they're on board. Or something my naughty husband does a lot. He loves to order from his independent cake shop after dinner. And again, my husband's very happy because we can do that for him every night.
Okay. Expanding back out, Q-commerce, I think, has surpassed 1 billion GMV, and grocery retail segments are growing by about 48% year on year, which in itself is incredible. Which operational elements, such as order density, batching, membership fees, advertising, dark stores, partnership products, most influence contribution to margin? And then, if you like, what are the key indicators that will demonstrate the model's sustainability and profitability? I mean, I don't know, just to sort of like go back to the core business, if there's any sort of light you can shed there.
You just listed all of my headaches, Alex, that I have to think about. I think, first of all, let's talk about the differences between that store model versus the partner model.
Yeah.
I think rather than just focusing on the margin specifically, what we really need to think about is what's the relative value proposition we're giving to customers. And I think that both models have respective pros and cons, because the partner model is like supermarkets that is very well known to our customers. They already know and love them. But what we typically see is that some supermarkets are amazing. They're able to give us almost live stock and price updates so that we're able to give customers a very accurate view of what's in the store. Others are not quite there yet. Let's just put it that way. So that's a big challenge and a big con for that business. Whereas on the dark store business, we control everything that goes on in that store. It is a 1P model essentially for us, right? So we're able to really optimize the customer experience for our customers. So things like out of stocks is much more rare on that side. And also our opening hours are typically a lot longer than the supermarket. So again, coming back to Spain, where on Sundays a lot of shops are shut, then that dark store model becomes very, very important to our customers.
Okay. In terms of then, when you mentioned earlier on the categories that you're doing. So, for example, because it's a marketplace, you can get beauty, which I think is 58%, electronics, which is 59%. Actually, that doesn't add up. All my percentage, you're breaking up. I'm like at 200%. How does that work? But in terms of maybe it's category split: beauty, electronics, and pets. What do you see is working, like from operationally, packaging and all these elements that come into that? And then obviously customer satisfaction, right? NPS scores in last mile delivery. What's working? What do you see is trending? And maybe where's your focus?
Actually, my focus is just to make sure that customers understand we have this breadth of offers that they can shop from. Because I think for many of the people who love and use Glovo every day, we're still a restaurant food. That's historically been our strength, and that's what they associate us with. But unfortunately, we have a lot of people not even tried groceries, which is typically the next place they try, let alone retailers. So something that we're working a lot on is thinking about how do we make customers more aware of those categories. But coming back to your question of how different those categories are, there are some categories that definitely are much more attuned to that traditional quick commerce model of 30-minute delivery. So for example, we launched over-the-counter medicine in Madrid in Spain this year. Obviously, if you're sick and dead, you really want that really, really quickly. But also some of the more sinful categories, let's just put it that way, alcohol.
Like your husband's after.
The things that you don't want people to see you buying in the shop, those work very, very well. But there's also some of the other thinking about what also does very well for us at Glovo today is AirPods. We sell a lot of those. And I think the use case, thinking about it, people lose them all the time. And then, oh gosh, I have a call in 20 minutes. So there's yet another use case. So yeah, lots of categories that work very well for us.
I think for those who are watching, or for those who are watching the podcast, because obviously we're live, I just want, if you're not, maybe you're in the UK or maybe you're in a country that Glovo's not there, I just want to show this is the web version of the site. And I know this is an app base, so probably I need to stress this is an app. The Glovo app is where the money's at. But it's really interesting in the categories that you've got up there, just to focus on, because like you were saying that obviously Apple AirPods or AirPods in general, people are losing them left, right, and center. So there's this use case of urgency because I've lost something and it's coming in. Do you see, or can you comment, are there any other areas on this that are missing that you want to go into? Like I can see like fashion's not there, right?
Fashion's a very tough one, because with fashion, I learned this lesson very hard at Amazon.
Yeah.
Fashion's very tough because you have the returns and sizing as a big difficulty.
Getting it delivered is one thing, and then how do you manage the process is the other.
Exactly. So, and right now we do actually have a few footwear and fashion retailers testing out Glovo right now. What we have enabled for customers is they can return directly to the stores themselves. That's one way to solve that problem for now, but we know that it's not the most seamless way to do things. So we want to make sure that the UX is a lot better before we go very big in that category.
Yeah, and I think the one thing listening to you talk that sort of challenged my perspective or perception is that it's not just delivery, it's a marketplace in that sense. Because you mentioned Amazon. So there is that sort of like, although there's no product there, but I guess if I go into one of those categories, there'll be a different customer or user experience per
Yeah, because we also have something what we call on demand. So if for whatever reason you want to, I'm in Barcelona, one end of Barcelona, you're at the other end, I just need to send you my notebook. That's also possible. So all of those delivery services is something that Oscar, who's our CEO and founder, even 10 years ago when he launched the app, that's how he imagined the app to be. We can just deliver you anything within the system.
Yeah, okay.
So you can think about how this can grow in terms of, does that mean if you're selling, I don't know, concert tickets secondhand rather than, or selling a secondhand iPhone? All of those use cases, I think, come to mind. Yeah.
Well, I have a fantastic one for you. Last week, I was in an airport. I was watching a family melt down because they'd left the passports in the hotel. And they were like talking to the hotel person saying, can you put it in an Uber? And the guy was like, no, I can't put it in an Uber. But that's a fantastic use case. Put it with Glovo. Glovo will bring it to the airport for you.
Exactly.
Use case of the future. When you look at, if we shift onto technology and your sort of investments in, I don't know, AI, inventory forecasting, beefing up the ETA analysis, what's on the roadmap? What do you think? And I know you've only been there a short time, so it's like you're still probably looking at those areas, but I'm curious where you feel, which metrics are important to you, and where would you invest from a technology perspective?
Yeah, I think here it's really appropriate to talk about Delivery Hero, we're part of the Delivery Hero group, and Delivery Hero also owns other sister brands like Foodpanda in Asia or Middle East. So they have very, very similar businesses to Glovo. And one of the reasons why, I think one of the things Delivery Hero really recognized very quickly is that is an industry where the best technology will win. How well you connect your customers to your partners, to your couriers. And they realize that there's actually a lot of scale effects in the back end technology. So for example, it doesn't really make sense for each of these sister brands to have its own logistical technology and algorithms, because ultimately how you drive operational efficiency. So when you talk about metrics, like how many orders can you deliver in an hour? What's your delivery time? All of those metrics is essentially the same wherever you are. And you're able to share knowledge across the different brands in the group. And you probably can build one central system to serve lots of different brands. So that's always been Delivery Hero's philosophy. But at the same time, that's the back end. Those metrics are important. What other metrics that's also important is the front end, what customers are interacting with. And this is where Delivery Hero's strategy is quite different, recognizing that Glovo, Talabat, Foodpanda, we all understand our customers very, very differently. How do we drive engagement, conversion, stickiness is really different in Asia versus in Europe, let's just say. So in that time, all of the brands still have direct control of what our app looks like. And we base our app developments on basically all the things we talked about before in terms of what's customers' demand, how do they behave, etc. Some of the things, I can't talk about new things, but some things that recently launched on Glovo, which is really exciting for our customers, is a new gifting experience. So imagine, oh God, it is actually my husband's birthday this month. You don't know what to buy for him. There's now an interface where you can put in who you're buying for, how old they are, what's your budget, and we give you a kind of Tinder-like experience to see.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
What may inspire you.
I was saying that's cool because it's my wife's birthday. I've just gone back to your website to see when the function is.
You need to go on the app. It's on the app.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let the app. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, final two questions. What's one question that I haven't asked you that people normally ask you?
I think one thing that I spent a lot of time as a consultant as well as being in industry, and having spent 8 years in Asia, I think one thing that I always get asked is what will come from China into Europe.
Okay.
And especially how different the social media landscape is in China. I think one place to really talk a lot about is social commerce in China. And very, very, very huge there.
Yeah.
Especially the rise of Douyin or TikTok, as it's known in Western Europe, because When I was in China, it was around 2018 when Douyin, China's TikTok, got really, really, really big. And I remember I was at Amazon at the time. We had a visiting VP from the Seattle headquarters. And we wanted to make this silly short form video with him, feature him in the all hands. And he was totally bemused by, why do I have to do this stupid little dance to this stupid little music? I mean, how different the world is now, right? Yeah. And obviously that is one of the biggest exports from China that has really worked well in the West. And you see every other platform now, from Facebook to YouTube, also focusing on short form videos. Yeah. But I think one thing that hasn't really translated quite as well is probably TikTok Shop. Yeah. Again, looking at how Douyin has emerged, if depending on whose data you believe, they are now the third or the fourth biggest e-commerce player in China. 15-20% share is the kind of numbers that I see. And we've seen some of the other Asian markets adopt TikTok Shop in a similarly enthusiastic fashion. I lived in Bangkok for a while, absolutely huge traction there. And we saw a lot of significant share gain compared to some of the e-commerce leaders there. Now, I think it remains to be seen how big it will be in more Western markets. There's definitely some successes. I hear TikTok Shop is now the fourth biggest beauty retailer in the UK. I can definitely believe that beauty is one of the best and most effective categories. But I personally have some doubts as whether it can get as big as China. And I think it's fundamentally due to like the makeup of the internet in China is quite different. I was actually listening to another podcast recently called Search Engine. They had an episode talking about the Dubai chocolate phenomenon. And they actually described like the difference between Chinese social media and Western social media really eloquently. I think they said something along the lines of, Americans can't wrap their heads around how consumerist China social media is. They were arguing how in China, because of censorship, the internet has become more like a giant shopping mall. Yeah. So every interaction is geared towards selling you something. And I think to some extent, I agree with that thesis because, again, thinking about when I was in China and comparing the numbers with Amazon, when customers open an e-commerce app in China, 50 to 70% of them have no idea what they want to buy. They're just browsing, compared to 20% of American shoppers on Amazon. Yeah. So basically, people in China go to shopping apps not just to transact. They're also using it to discover new products they never knew before, be entertained, go and play games, go and watch videos, which I think explains why things like live streaming is working so well in China compared to some of the Western markets. So I think Amazon has essentially trained customers in the States as well as in Western Europe how to transact in e-commerce. So I think as a result, a bit more pessimistic on how explosive that could be here.
I think for personally, it's entertainment. What they do really well is entertainment, both online and in store, dwell or spaces where transactions don't need to happen are allowed. So in Shanghai, most of the shops have a coffee bar. You are encouraged to dwell, spend time there, hang out there, be on your phone. I don't know, take social pictures, where we are incredibly transactionally led over here. But that's why retail is failing. And that's why so many retailers in the UK have failed, because they treat everything as the transaction, which, interestingly enough, is maybe the way we've been trained by e-commerce. So there's no delight, there's no discovery. Sorry, I say there hasn't been delight, there hasn't been discovery. And that's what in Asia they do really, really well. And China, I think, have spearheaded that. And I totally agree with you that delight and discovery are two things incredibly difficult to do online. And so, again, as I said, I will be downloading your app and looking for some delight for birthday recommendations for my wife, whose birthday is in September. And to take from that, Connie, I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us today. And I look forward to hopefully downloading the app and buying something and using the service and seeing where it takes me.
Thank you, Alex. It's been wonderful to chat to you today.
Thanks.